Welcome back to another episode of Power in Politics, the show where we explore leadership, legacy, and the people shaping change in our communities. I'm your host, Jacqueline L. Malone, CEO of Blind Resistance Clothing Brand. Our tagline, For the Culture, by the Culture, reflects our commitment to empowerment, sustainability, and uplifting underserved communities. This episode is brought to you by Support Excellence Media, amplifying voices, stories, and movements that inspire. From creative content to community centered campaigns, Support Excellence Media is dedicated to elevating purpose driven work. Learn more at supportexcellence.org. Thank you for tuning in. To stay up to date on future episodes, please like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell icon.
This episode is brought to you by the Support Black Excellence Foundation and their Support Excellence Initiative. At the Support Black Excellence Foundation, we're on a mission to foster a brighter future for all, particularly in underserved Black communities. Through strategic partnerships, mentorship programs, community service projects, and financial initiatives, we are committed to driving meaningful change where it's needed most. We invite you to join us in this remarkable journey of progress and transformation. Together, we can turn our vision into a reality. Let's shape a future that is equitable and inclusive, where empowerment, elevation, and excellence intersect to create a legacy of positive change. Thank you to the Support Black Excellence Foundation and their Support Excellence Initiative for sponsoring this podcast.
Today, on Power in Politics, we have the privilege of speaking with a leader whose life reflects the true meaning of service, work rooted in compassion, community, and courageous action. Illinois State Senator Karina Villa is a lifelong West Chicago resident, the proud daughter of Mexican immigrant small business owners, and the first Latina to represent Illinois' 25th district. Her upbringing is instilled in values of hard work, dignity, and caring for others, values she's carried into her career as a school social worker and later into public office, where she made history and became a powerful advocate for mental health, youth empowerment, public health, and justice reform. As chair of the Senate Public Health Committee, she has championed legislation that expands behavioral health access, strengthens juvenile justice, and ensures communities across Illinois receive the essential human services they deserve. And now she is taking that commitment statewide as a candidate for Illinois Controller, continuing her journey from social worker to state senator to statewide leader dedicated to people-centered public service. Senator Villa, we are honored to have you here. Welcome to Power in Politics.
Jacqueline, I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do to really inform the public and bring guests on to answer the questions that folks are constantly dying to ask, but might not have the opportunity to do it.
Absolutely. It's going to be a wonderful podcast. I'm so excited to have you. Let's start with your background. Take us back to West Chicago. What was life like growing up as the daughter of Mexican immigrant small business owners? And how did those early experiences shape your values and your understanding of community?
Yeah, this is a great question to kick us off. So West Chicago is about an hour outside of the city of Chicago. And growing up here, it's part of DuPage County. DuPage County, back when I was growing up, was a strong Republican stronghold. This is where politicians from across the United States came to host fundraisers and to meet with their voters. Well, let me tell you what that did for me as a youth growing up in that environment. It really taught me so much about the difference of opinions, to understand where others were coming from, but also to have a sense of justice and a sense of understanding what our constitutional rights were, to speak up for others when others were unable to speak up for themselves in that small community in the grocery store. And folks would come in on a regular basis to ask me for advice, ask me to read and interpret papers for them that were important, even ask me to go with them to their child's school to enroll them in the neighborhood school because they were just afraid of going in because they were not aware of what the system here in the United States was like. So I started advocating for families from a very young age, and it totally formed everything I was going to do after that. So it really was just an instrumental part of my life.
Wow. How old were you when that took place?
Yeah, I was 13 when my parents opened their stores. So my brother and I, from that small age, had to go in and help stock the shelves. But it was like a whole family thing. Like my aunts and uncles would come, my cousins would come and help. It really felt like a extended version of our home where people could come in and really feel welcomed and feel like they had someone that they could trust with their thoughts and their problems. It was a working class community, and it still is. It's a vibrant community here in West Chicago. And a lot of the workers here work in blue collar jobs and factories. We have a large manufacturing industry here in the area. And really, these folks are people who contribute to the fabric of our society and making sure that our society keeps going. But they're also a group of folks who have been long forgotten, especially right now during these times where we see these masked individuals coming to kidnap people off the sides of the street just because of the color of our skin.
Mm, you're so right about that. And we're going to dive a lot deeper into that area too, because it is really important. But I'm glad to hear this story of community in a village, literally a village taking care of one another from child all the way to through adult. And that is the importance, and it is a great story to tell. Was there a specific moment in your childhood or early adulthood when you realized that service, whether through helping others or speaking up, would become part of your purpose?
Yes, and I think that my mom will talk about this all the time when people ask her, like, when did she start doing this? You know, when did she start wanting to help others? And it really was when I was very, very young in grade school. And I think that part of where I got that lesson was that every summer, my family and I were privileged enough to be able to drive to Mexico, go to my father's hometown, and see where my dad grew up. And on those trips, I really got to see where my ancestors came from. You see, there was still no running water. We still had to walk to the community well to get water for cooking and bathing. There was no bathroom. We would go out in the back, and there was kids in these communities still. And so I would show up with all of my privilege, even as a little girl, understanding this privilege and having this connection, knowing that this is how my father grew up, right? And understanding that we should never forget about where our roots are. We should never forget where we come from. And we should always think about how we can give back to others, right? Because at the end of the day, our paths started in the same way. The story started in the same way. And a lot of these people now that I used to hang out with as a little kid back in those small farm communities are now successful individuals. And it's really brilliant to see and observe that. But that, I think, is where my strong sense of wanting to serve others started from that young age.
That's such a wonderful, wonderful story. And it is interesting how our ancestors paved the way for us to
Mhm.
have this more simplified life to live. And you're right, we should be so grateful and so appreciative that technically we should not have to struggle in such a way. We know the times are trying to take us backwards, but I don't believe that that's going to sustain. Wonderful story. And on the show, we like for our guests to resonate with our viewers, whether through community, values, or shared interests. If you had to capture your upbringing in just one word, what would that word be, and why does it define your early story?
Hmm. Gosh, this
Mm,
is tough.
I know.
One word of my upbringing. I'm gonna say determination. My parents is it's what they modeled for me. It's what they modeled for me and my brother. They were determined. They were determined to raise children in a community that was better than where they were raised. They were determined to open a small business. This was their dream. I remember as a kid all the long hours of conversations about one day owning a small business, and then finally when they opened it. And then I also remember the struggles of like my parents, you know, the first few years of a small business are so brutal. Them staying up late and like being so frustrated. The math wasn't mathin', paying all the bills and having to raise a family at the same time. But they were determined and they kept going and they kept looking and finding different ways to bring in more customers to the store. And it was just brilliant. I mean, my parents are just brilliant people and absolutely determined.
Wow. And you are such a great reflection of that. I mean, honestly, wonderful, wonderful answer. So beautiful. So, as a school social worker, you were often the first person families turn to during challenging moments. What did you see inside classrooms and homes that most people never do?
Jacqueline, the heart of the people, the heart of the people. I was never a social worker who worked from my office. You would never find me in my office unless I had an appointment with a student or a family. You would see me in the hallways, in the classrooms, on the playground during recess, or you would find me at doing home visits. I would go into the people's homes, sit with them and listen to them in their surroundings. I remember beautiful stories. Families would welcome me in. They would offer me what little they had to offer. You know, I'd be sitting and watching as these family members would come together to help raise the little ones. I I also saw some really difficult things. I'll never forget one particular family that folks would be like, just stay away from that family. They're not going to allow you in. They're not going to let you into their homes. And that to me was painful because how can we think about a family as a family that we should stay away from? So I made it my personal mission. And I would go, I would call on a regular basis. I would say, I'm going to stop by because I just want to drop off a bag of food. Or, I saw these things at the store the other day, and I thought that your student might be able to benefit from, these flashcards or these books or these snow boots. And little by little, little by little, little by little, the family started letting me in. They started letting me in, and let me tell you, it was so difficult to go into this home because of this. Just there was a smell that was so difficult to muster and to overcome. And it was a family with disabilities themselves and a child with disabilities. I got to the point where this family had never stepped foot inside of the school. This family started coming into the school and giving me a hug. And it was so uncomfortable for others because of the strong odor And I would say to all of them, not one word. I don't want to hear one word about this. That little baby boy that comes into this school every day, you don't know what he has to go through every single day to get here. I don't want to hear one word about the odor. And I don't want to hear one word about the odor when the parent comes into this building. I don't want to hear one word about it. These are the things that we need to understand. We need to meet people where they're at. We need to meet people where they're at in order to help bring them in to the scary school system. You don't know what kind of experience these parents have gone through themselves in the education program. I could go on for hours about the experiences that these home visits taught me, but I'll tell you, families taught me, my students taught me more than I could ever have hoped to teach them. They taught me about resilience. They taught me about love, about grit, about overcoming, and about how much we fail students and families by not providing the resources that they need to get ahead in life.
That's so interesting, such a interesting story. But I am so happy that the school system has someone like you who's caring, because you don't always get a you in those situations. Um, and so I'm really glad that family experienced that love and care from you, because it really takes all of us. The schools can't do it alone, teachers can't do it alone, and the parents a lot of times unfortunately cannot do it alone. And so we need each other to lean on. And I'm so happy that you not only experienced it, they experienced it, and you also taught others in the moment of, love, appreciation, and just, you never know, any of us could at any point end up any type of situation, and so we have to not be so judgmental. So thank you for that. I think that was really beautiful. How did those firsthand experiences with mental health, trauma, and family challenges inspire your longstanding commitment to expanding behavioral health access?
It taught me all I needed to know. So when people don't, one of the things that people don't realize, and they say, oh, how did you go from being a social worker to an elected official? And I said, it is all interconnected. So all of the stories and all of the advocacy work that I did on the micro level, one-to-one with students and with families, I then took all of that information that I had learned about how the system was failing families, and I used that once I got into the General Assembly in order to pass policies that I knew were needed in order for families to be able to access mental health services. One such piece of legislation, after years of attempting to pass, we had to go up against the insurance industry because the insurance industry was not reimbursing clinicians, mental health clinicians, at an adequate rate. What that meant was that if you had private insurance and you wanted to go out and find a therapist, it's almost impossible to do that because the therapists are not wanting to become providers within the insurance companies. The reason for that is because of such low reimbursement rates. So what you'll find is clinicians that are then just charging out of pocket. So imagine if you're having to pay $150 an hour per session to go and see a therapist. And at the same time, you're paying for your health insurance. That's not right. So we went and we passed, I was very instrumental in, along with State Representative Lindsay LaPointe, to pass this legislation that is going to force these insurance companies to pay a rate that is a higher rate of reimbursement for these mental health clinicians in order to open the doors for people to actually go and get the help that they need.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, that system, that insurance system is really tough. It is definitely not in our favor. So, any help that we can get from political leaders like yourself to fight for the community and the people is greatly appreciated. I know the struggles I go through myself with insurance, and so it hits us at every single level. So, thank you for that. And can you recall a moment in your social work years when you said to yourself, this system has to change? And maybe I'm meant to help change it.
Yes, absolutely. It was actually under the previous governor, a man by the name of Bruce Rauner. So he was not passing a budget. So we spent 3 years in the state of Illinois without a budget. And I was known, this wouldn't surprise you or your listeners, I was known to be the social worker who would go to the ends of the earth and back in order to find the resources that my students needed. And whether it was one of my favorite stories to share is a student whose he'd broken his adult tooth and he needed a new one, and his family just couldn't afford the dental work. So now as an adult, when he sees me, he's like, Miss V, I remember when you paid for this tooth to get replaced. It's just a funny little anecdote there, but a very real one. Imagine being a teenager without a front tooth. That's a problem, right? So I would work so hard to find resources for my families, whether it was housing or food assistance or a tooth. And under Rauner, there was just no available help. In fact, it was the opposite. We were unable to match students with basic services that they needed, basic things that the families needed to make ends meet. After school care, summer programming, healthcare, food, housing, all of it was just in shambles. These programs getting cut left and right. So I got to a point where I was asking myself on a very regular basis, where are the leaders? Where are the decision makers? Why aren't they stepping up? And so finally, I basically got tired of hearing myself ask that question. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And that is what propelled me into running for office to become a state representative.
Wow. I thought you were going to say you looked in the mirror and said, you are the leader because you really you were the leader. You were the person you were looking for the whole time. That's actually a wonderful story.
Thank you.
Let's delve into politics now a little more. And your first race flipped a Republican seat. Congratulations. That is an incredible feat for a first time candidate. And what pushed you to step into politics and say, yes, it's time for me to run? Now, you just talked a little bit about that, but
Yep.
was that the actual, like, ooh, this is the moment?
That was it, that along with, I remember it was the last speech that President Obama gave. Now, that was after we already had seen the results of the presidential election, and we knew that the next president incoming would be Donald Trump. And that last speech, I remember, the nation had such mixed feelings, and there was some people were very excited, and others of us were just simply devastated and brokenhearted. And I remember President Obama, he said, if you're tired of this, or if you're concerned with what just happened in these last elections, or if you have, this desire to help others, grab a clipboard, put on your running shoes, and go run for something. So I literally tell people, I ran for state representative because President Obama told me to. It's he told us, he said, go do it. Stop waiting. Go do it. And so I did.
Wow. And it's interesting. I talk to a lot of leaders, community leaders, that is. And, I hear some background stories sometimes as you get to know folks, people become more vulnerable in their speech to you. And some aren't as bold to take that step like you did. There's even though they're in the realm of the politics now, some of them are still hesitant to move to the next level because they think, oh, I'm not going to have the support or this and that. So it is so refreshing to see someone like you who you were just in the community helping in schools, and you just cared enough and you took the chance to do it. You were bold in that. So it is such an inspiration, and it's so empowering to others who might think, oh, I can't do this, or they give themselves these excuses on why they can't. But you
Yes.
did.
And I will tell you, Jacqueline, like, it is a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice to run for higher office. The pay is not great. I took a significant pay cut to become a state representative, significant pay cut. I had been in the education field for 15 years. I had a master's degree, right? And so not only was it a pay cut once I got elected, but in order to get elected, I had to take a leave of absence from my job. So I wasn't receiving any income. I had no income. I was blessed enough at the time that I had asked my parents if they would cover my mortgage payments for me. And they said yes. But I ended up in debt after that election. And if I had lost, that would have been so difficult. I am single and don't have children. So I think that that's another factor when you think about women in politics, right? And you think about especially moms who run for office. It's brutal. And the attacks that they invest in spending against you, and they slander your name when you're running for office. I think that I understand why some of these community leaders say, I just don't want to do it. I can't. And not to mention the money in politics and the money it takes to raise your name ID. Some of the smaller races are less expensive, but when you're getting to run for state rep, state senator, for Congress, for a statewide office, the amount of money it takes to get your information out there and in front of voters, it can be excruciatingly daunting. So that's why this podcast is so critical, and the work that you're doing, because you get to spread that message, especially for qualified candidates who are really wanting to get out and get the word out in front of the community.
Thank you for explaining that in such grand detail, because that not only took me into the moment and the mind of someone like that. And it's important to hear that side, because we don't often hear that, as the community, we're just looking, and the community can be very judgmental. Why is this? Why aren't they doing this? Oh, they didn't do this for me. But they don't know the struggle that you actually go through on a day to day as you're trying to even fight for us, or run for office, as you mentioned. So wonderful. And I love educating folks, even myself, on this podcast. And you're right. This podcast is a free service podcast. It is because we spotlight people in the community who are doing great work. And we want to bring out those services, those resources, and let the people know these individuals care. They are invested in you, meaning you as the community, and they're there for you. So we should also in turn be there for you all as well. And so thank you for mentioning that. Let's move to some of your signature initiatives. I mean, we talked a little bit about that. In this section, we'll balance out the narrative a little bit with your programs that you champion. And let's start with mental and behavioral health leadership. So, as chair of the Public Health Committee, you've led significant efforts to expand behavioral health access. Which initiatives are you most proud of, And can you share a story where access to mental health support changed a constituent's life?
So, gosh, there's so many of them. I will start, I think, with my LCSW bill. And the reason I'm going to start with that is because it impacts the Black and Brown community as well as the clinicians who are social workers. So there is a for-profit company who has a standardized test that if you want to be a licensed clinical social worker, you must take this test that is put forth by a for-profit company. Let me stress that and underline it, an exclamation mark it, for-profit company. So in order to become a social worker, you have to go through a master's degree. You have to obtain a master's degree if you want to become a licensed clinical social worker. You have to get a master's degree. You have to do one entire year of an internship, one entire year, oftentimes an unpaid internship or an internship with very minimal reimbursement, okay? A stipend that's minuscule. And then upon graduating, you have to do 3,000 hours of supervised time. Oftentimes, you have to pay for that supervision out of your own pocket. And then you have to apply and sit for this exam. So we knew that Black and Latino social workers were not passing that exam. We knew that anecdotally, but this for-profit company was refusing to release their data. So eventually they finally did. They released the data and it showed us what we already knew. It showed us that if you were Black or Latino, you were not going to pass this test. So basically what that allows is for the social work, the licensed clinical social work profession to be dominated by folks who are not, the cultural background is not Black or Latino. What does that then in turn do for us as people of color who want to go and see a licensed clinical social worker? What does that do for us? Right?
Whatsoever.
It's unavailable. They're unavailable. And this test, despite this company knowing that we as people of color were not passing the test, they did nothing to change it. Nothing. So what did I do about it? I passed a law. And let me tell you, it was not easy. Went to war and oh my gosh, it was so difficult. So what the bill does is that it provides an alternate pathway. Unfortunately, what I wanted to do was to say, you can either take the test and pass it, and that's how you become a licensed clinical social worker, or you can do an additional 3,000 hours, and then you can become a licensed clinical social worker without needing to take the test. The lobby against my bill was so intense that I couldn't pass it in that way. So I had to be creative and think of another solution. So what finally passed was this. So you have to graduate with your degree. You have to do 3,000 hours of the clinical supervision. And then you have to take the test. You have to take the test. And if you take the test and fail, you do 3,000 more hours of supervision, and then you can get your license. So you still have to take the test. But now if you take the test and fail, you don't have to retake that test. This has opened the doors immediately. Oh, and by the way, if you had already taken the test and failed, you didn't need to retake the test according to my bill. So immediately we had Black and Latino social workers applying for and getting their LCSW. We did that. Yeah. So it was a huge deal where we went up against this corporate testing body, and despite their objections and despite all of the money that they poured into lobbyists to fight against this bill, we won. We won. And that is bringing huge changes for the community.
Yes, absolutely. Because we need folks that look like us. Everyone needs the representation across the board. Doesn't matter what your background is, you need a representation that looks like you and understands you and the journey that you go through. So, how can I go to a therapist and talk about my experiences as an African American and they don't look like me? They have no idea what I'm talking about. How can they help me but through book form? You know what I mean? And sometimes you need more than that. It's the same way what you were doing before office. You were in a community that you knew the struggle of the community and you had compassion there. So it's just, oh my gosh, you are really, really impressing me so much. I'm like,
Thank you. Likewise. Likewise.
it's like you're impressing me not only because you have this heart of love and compassion, because in service, because I'm big on the service thing too. But woman to woman, I mean, you you are proving time and time again that we can do this thing. We can lead, we can fight, and we can win. And so, no more of the excuses, but go out and at least put your foot forward. At least be bold and brave to do that. And I'm so thankful you were, because where would we be had you not been in place and position? So wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Uh, let's talk about juvenile justice reform now. Another great thing that you've done here. You've championed efforts like SB 2197 to support youth and transform the justice system. Tell the viewing audience what SB 2197 consists of and what experiences made this issue personal for you, and what does a just future, quote unquote, for Illinois' youth look like?
Well, let me start with what does this look like? It looks like opportunities in communities for students, whether it's educational or vocational. It's safe communities over the summer that youth can go and get jobs and get paid for it, that they have the ability to walk down the street and they don't have to be fearful of getting from point A to point B. Listen, there are communities that have been so severely underfunded historically in the state of Illinois. And there's no reason for that. There's no reason for the disinvestment. These communities that once flourished are now abandoned or look like they're abandoned because we have not invested in these communities. And in fact, we have taken from these communities instead of put investments into them. Now, the juvenile detention centers, it'll be a complete success when students no longer end up in them, right? When we're looking and we're seeing that there's 5 kids across the state of Illinois in a juvenile detention center, right? That's what a beautiful society looks like. Because I'm not going to say that there's never the need, right? There is a need, but this shouldn't be an easy decision to send a youth to a detention center ever. This should never be a decision that is taken lightly. And I've actually gone and toured juvenile detention centers. I've toured multiple times, one in King County. I've also gone to one in St. Charles and in Warrenville. I guess that one's in DuPage County, where kids are sent, and it's devastating because they're kids. They're still kids. So this bill that you're referencing is mandating that there's an ombudsman in these juvenile detention centers, and that these ombudsmen are from independent from anyone else. That a youth or their family, if they have a complaint, that they can do so freely, that they can reach out and not fear repercussion, not fear for their safety, or not fear that they're going to have privileges revoked, right? That this can be a safe place for them to report any kind of issues that they're experiencing. Because what we have seen is that there are some significant atrocities that occur against youth when they are in these vulnerable locations. And we want to make sure that all of our youth are taken care of here in the state of Illinois, all of them. And that is why I passed that bill. And the personal connection, I have former students who've ended up in detention. And as much as, whenever I can, if I'm invited to the wedding of a former student, or I'm invited to the baptism of their child, if I'm asked by one of my former students to go and visit them while they're incarcerated, I sure as heck show up. I sure as heck do. I go and I visit them, and I check in on them, and I advocate for them, and I tell them, like, let's keep hoping, keep dreaming, And one of them said to me the last time I went to go visit him, "Miss Via, you remember when you used to yell at me to get to class on time?" I remember that. "Remember when you used to yell at me to pull up my pants?" I'm like, "Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Of course I do." He's like, "You're still yelling at me, Miss Via." I'm like, "Of course. And it's because I love you, and I'm always going to be there for you." It's like, "Yeah, I know." That's it. These kids sometimes go down the wrong path. I'm not saying that he's innocent from why he's there, but he was a kid when he made these decisions. And I often think to myself, what more could I have done? What more could society have done to prevent from him ending up where he's at,
Yeah, and that's the thing. You hit the nail on the head there, society, because that's what kind of forms our experiences there. And it is sad because there is a target. I hope I don't have the numbers off too much, but 13 to 21 is a huge target there for high policing in Black and Brown communities. And so, imagine a kid growing up in a lower income community with parents struggling or they are not there, and it's just the deck stacked against them. They're not birthed criminals, you know what I mean? Or and then again, the brain does not even, what is it, like you have to be 25 or something before your brain fully develops? How can you even make great decisions, and these are your experiences. So it's just a lot there, for it. We do advocate through my foundation for voting rights for formerly incarcerated individuals. And I spoke with Cook County Commissioner Bill Lowry, and he has a bill they're passing to try to get folks already incarcerated to still vote. Like, why is that taken away? And so there's just different things like that as well, because now it takes away your societal obligation to be able to even contribute. It's just a lot of things that's stacked against you.
Oh, and don't even get me started on what happens when they get out.
Yeah, it's just
It's a
you,
scarlet letter. It's a
yeah.
scarlet letter.
Yes, the reentry is so tough. Everything's stacked against them. So, this is why it really does take us to wrap our arms around each other and to acknowledge and to see each other. to see each other. This is why I'm in such awe of you, because you see people, you see it. And so that is really, really important. And I'm so glad that there are community leaders like you, not for self only. Oh, I have this title, or that. No, you really, truly care. You really, truly have the passion for the people. And so, you should go as high as God elevates you, in what you do, because you will do the work for the right reasons. And so let's talk about public health and community well-being. As we look back at 2025 and towards 2026, and even the years ahead, what concerns you most about public health, and what gives you hope?
What concerns me the most is the falsities of the federal government, a generation of kids that'll be not vaccinated, which will then lead to death in communities. It's going to take us back decades. What's happening right now, the disinvestment, the disinformation, the misinformation, I guess, to communities about a lot of different things. You know, the disinvestment in science, all of the advancements that we've had when it comes in particular, my concern of Black maternal health. We were already decades behind in terms of Black maternal health. This is only pushing us back even further. It's really, really tough. And what gives me hope? Our medical profession, the state of Illinois being a place that we're still going to keep fighting and saying we believe in science here, and the people who live here, can count on that. That there's access to reproductive rights here in the state of Illinois. What gives me hope is the idea that we in Illinois are growing in terms of our voice and our boldness in looking for solutions to revenue that will bring in dollars to the state right now, as the federal government is slashing the budget in order to do two things. One is to fund these masked monsters who are terrorizing our people on the streets, and two, to give tax breaks and incentives to corporations and to billionaires and to ultra wealthy people. We in Illinois, we need to hold those same people accountable here in Illinois. Those same people in Illinois need to pay their fair share. This country is one of the wealthiest countries, if not the wealthiest country in the world. There's no reason that in the shadow of these skyscrapers in Chicago, there are people unhoused under bridges. There is no reason why in this magnificent city there should be lines out the door for people to receive food. Food, it's a basic need. There's no reason why our farmers in Southern Illinois should be committing suicide at alarming rates. There's no reason for that. Because you see, these billionaires and these corporations need to pay more in Illinois. We should not be balancing budgets on the backs of the people. When I look at a budget and I see that in order to balance it, we're cutting healthcare, we're cutting programs for youth in the summer, we're cutting funding to services that are imperative for families to make ends meet, I say enough. I say, not anymore. I say, not in Illinois. And that is the message that I want to make sure that people hear loud and clear. And that's actually, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but that is actually why I am running to be the next Illinois state controller. So I can spread that message across the state of Illinois. Because make no mistake, there is money here. The money just can't keep getting squeezed out of the pockets of the working people, people who are working 2 jobs to make ends meet, working for a corporation whose CEO is getting wealthier and wealthier by the day, not getting health care at work, not having safe working conditions, having to meet quotas on lines if you work for these corporations, being treated like subclass citizens while you're trying to figure out how you're going to feed your kids. Come on. We can do better. We have to do better.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you hit everything there. And I completely agree with all of the above. We definitely need to um, have the ultra rich become accountable. I know that is not going to fare well with some folks that I know in leadership. They don't want that because they think they're going to lose that funding. But I'm saying, what's the alternative? It's a lose lose situation, so we might as well fight for uh, the proper rights, be on the right side of history on this, because this will pass. There will be a time where we'll revert back. But I will say too, the other part of that goodness is forcing us to stand on our own, to not rely so much on government, in at least this government, you see. And so it is making those proper individuals stand up, be tougher, take another look at each of us individually. Okay, I need to stand up too for my family, or I need to stand up in this way, or I need to. It's actually making all of us better if we accept the challenge.
And, use the lessons that our ancestors taught us. Use
That's right.
those lessons, those struggles, those fights.
Yes, because they fought too to get us to such a place. We have to take the strength of that and realize that we've been giving our power away all these decades. We literally have been giving it away. Why? We have so much power. We are actually the ones in control because we fund the ultra rich. We keep their pocketbooks thick, so we have to uh, create our own businesses like you're talking. We need to stand up, go into leadership positions like you're doing, have a voice in our community, speak up, go out and help, be part of the community, build our own communities, not just sit back and say, oh, well, waiting for them to give us something. We have to go and take it. We are the ones with the power, but we don't know that. We've been so conditioned to think that we don't have it.
That's right. Absolutely.
So as you know, there is a heaviness surrounding immigration in our country. You've been a visible advocate when families are facing immigration related fear or crisis, and stood with them during moments of fear and uncertainty. What guides you in those high pressure moments when you're fighting to protect dignity, safety, and trust?
I think that it's the same force that has always driven me. Like, I have a strong sense of justice, whether it's related to one individual person who I see as being wronged, or whether I see it's a group of people who are being wronged, or when I see these masked monsters coming down the street of my own community where I grew up in. It's not okay. And I will stand up and I will speak out when it's in relation to folks who are really just attempting to make ends meet. And it's not unrelated to the work that I've done my whole life, my whole career. I just have this North Star in my heart that tells me to speak up and speak out when I see an injustice happening. Sometimes I speak before I think, but I hope that the majority of the time that when I do that it's to defend people, to be a defender of people. And I am a firm believer in God. I'm a firm believer in God, and I believe in doing right by others. Love thy neighbor. That's it.
Yeah, and it's a really sad thing. I mean, to view some of these things online. And I remember I was out um, one evening, and it was fairly late, and I'm thinking, wow, it's like 11 o'clock, almost midnight, or somewhere in there. I see these little kids selling flowers or whatever, just out. And I'm like, why are these little kids out? Like, what's going on? And then I start to see the parents with the babies, like shielded with covers, and then they're getting in line. There's a bar. It's like a Saturday night, and so they're kind of trying to merge into the line so that they're not as noticed or whatnot. So I'm thinking, what is, maybe they're coming out at different times, because that's the only time they can come out, because maybe they're hiding or whatnot. But the sadness that overtook me in the moment, because they just look like beautiful people, not bothering anyone, just want to have a better life and live their lives. They don't want to harm anyone, but they need money. They need to survive. They need to eat. And the babies have to come out and try to sell these little flowers just so they can get a little bit of money. And so it's just, it did touch me. I'm just like, wow, the things folks are going through. And then you see these just hoodlums, I don't know what you call them, but they're out, how they're treating women and hitting them and throwing them down and all of these different imagery. It's just really sad. But it shows the person. It shows it's demonic spirit. Like, I really believe we are in this spiritual warfare thing, you know, and it's just a lot of demonic activity happening. But it is really, really sad. And I am glad that you will continue to speak up. You will continue to advocate for injustice and say, no, this is wrong, and we have to do something about it. Because if we don't, we're all going to be swallowed up in that. And we can't sit back and say, oh, that's them, not me. Oh, oh, it's you too. We're all getting uh, hit by it one way or the next. So we have to stand up strong to it.
Yeah. I mean, look at the freedom of the press. It's under question, right? The freedom of our First Amendment right, freedom of speech, has been under question. We're being attacked by this. People who are unhoused being called criminals now. These are issues that are impacting all of us. Not being able to access reproductive health care, and doctors and nurses being attacked as a result of providing these kinds of services. We need to wake up. We need to wake up. And if we think it's just about the immigration issue, that's not just what this is about. This is about much bigger things. I was out in Elgin during the standoff between ICE and one person. They had hit him with a car, and he ran, and he was on a balcony, and the community was there keeping an eye and witnessing it all. Over 30 ICE agents, over 30. How much money is that? How much money is that? And yet we're okay with saying we're cutting people off of SNAP benefits. I mean, it's insane. It's ludicrous. It's not right.
And then you have some people posing as ICE as well that are also jumping in there. So we all just have to be really, really careful and mindful of our surroundings.
That's right.
I have a couple more questions in there, but I'm going to skip those. I want to talk about your campaign, the future vision in 2026. So you recently launched your campaign for Illinois State Controller. What inspired you to seek statewide office? I know you mentioned that a little bit earlier, but we're going to bring it back now. And why do you believe your background as a social worker and legislator uniquely prepare you for this role?
Thank you for that question. So I launched this campaign because it all is interconnected to what made me run back in the first place. When I first ran, when I went from being Miss VS School Social Worker to State Representative Karina Villa, and then State Senator, of course. I am running because the people of Illinois under this federal regime need defenders, need bold allies and advocates, need people who have a proven track record that are showing up with receipts, not just I'm here now and running for the seat because it's open. I have the track record. I have the receipts. I've been doing the work ever since I was a social worker. And you look at all of the legislation that I've championed and you'll see my heart is with the people. My advocacy is for the people. That is why I do the work that I do. What does the controller do? What on earth does the controller do? The controller decides in what order to pay the bills. And what we know right now is that this federal administration is set on slashing our funds, on not sending us the money that is owed to us, on giving billionaires tax breaks, giving corporations tax vacations. That is what we know about this federal government. So what we need is a controller who's going to be loud and vocal and say, first, I'm going to pay the bills in the order of the most vulnerable people in society first. That is who will receive payment first out of my office when I am the controller. But more than that, I will use the microphone of the controller to go across the state of Illinois and say, yes, I have paid the bills on time. Yes, this is a balanced budget. But no, that is not enough. That is not enough. If we want to fully fund education, this is how much money we need. If we want to fully fund summer programming for our youths, this is how much we need. If we want to fund healthcare and safety net hospitals in rural Illinois or in the city, this is how much we need. And here are the solutions. Here are the ideas of where to capture that money. One solution that I've proposed is the digital ad tax. When you go online and you see these ads from all of these different pharmaceutical companies, we need to tax them. We need to tax them. They're getting a free ride. And let me tell you, they've got a lot of zeros behind their name in terms of their income. We need to tax them. We also need to change the regressive structure of the way that we tax Illinoisans. Our income tax is terrible. And the working people are the ones who are paying the price. So I will use the microphone across the state of Illinois. And I already have, as I've been campaigning, I'm driving everywhere. From the most southern parts of Illinois, I'm down by Sangamon County, McLean County. I'm, over in Senator Ammon's district. I'm out by in the city by Senator Lakeisha Collins' district. I am all over the place. And I walk into all of these areas and I am saying the same message that I am saying here on this podcast. And I get standing ovations from people. I get people who are clapping and saying, absolutely, this is the message. This is the bold leadership. This is what we're talking about. So I know that we have a winning campaign. Let's circle back to money in politics, to that conversation that we had earlier about how some community leaders are too shy or they think about it 10 times and they decide not to run. Money in politics. It costs $800,000 a week to get an ad in the Chicagoland media market. $800,000 a week. One of my opponents is a multimillionaire. One of my opponents is very connected to billionaires. I'm a social worker. That's who I am. I am a fierce advocate for the people. I can't fully fund my campaign. That's the difference here. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about money in politics. That's the bottom line, right? I am building a strong campaign. That is a people-powered, people-centered campaign. I will not be bought out. I will not be sold. I will stand for the people, and all of us together will celebrate on election day. This is a primary election. So everyone who wants to go vote, everyone who doesn't want to go vote. Even if you don't want to, do it. Register to vote online. If you've liked one thing I've had to say here, look me up, karinavilla.com, KARINAVILLA.com. Look me up on social media. See what I'm about. I've got receipts. I don't sit on the sidelines. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. Send me a message. You don't like something I have to say? It's okay. Send me a message. Let's talk it out. Invite me to come out to your community. I'll come out. I'm not afraid.
I had a question. I was going to ask you, I was going to say something like, this show is called Power in Politics. What does power mean to you? But, you are power. I mean, you're so powerful. Like, I answered my own question. I'm like, no, she is the power in politics. I don't care about the other candidate with all the money. I understand that that's a huge deal, but when you have someone like you who is so invested and ready to answer the questions, the tough questions, ready to jump in, roll your sleeves up, and just go to work for the community, that's more powerful, more valuable than any dollar. And that's what the community wants. We understand that there's all kind of things happening, a lot of things that can be against you, but I love the confidence of, we're going to be celebrating at the end of this, because more than the dollar, God knows. God knows.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Doesn't matter about that dollar. God knows. He will rise someone up with less. I mean, like you said, you're a social worker. That's where you started. Well, you started before then in the community. You always been the community. So wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. Let's see. You talked about top changes there. So I would think that those changes that you mentioned are the ones that you're going to go right through the door with advocating for once you get elected. And so, what emerging issues must Illinois address today to ensure a stronger, more equitable future for the next generation? And I'll couple that with reform and redesign. So, if you could reform or redesign one part of state government to make it work better for everyday families, what would it be and why?
So I think that the only thing that I'm going to bring up here is the way that we're funding things. We are looking at the system in a backwards way. We need to think about funding things in an equitable way, and we should not be going into communities that have their daycares with bars on their window. Those are the communities who need the investment first. Those are the communities that need the resources first. We should not have these farmers committing suicide at such an alarming rate. Why are they committing suicide at this rate? It's because they're not yielding what they need to yield. And when we're not offering subsidies, we're not offering these farmers. The federal government is slashing these subsidies, slashing the programs where we used to have programs where farmers could give crops to the local schools. Those programs have gone away. This is a problem. We should not be having food deserts in this state. We need to fund these communities first, because those are the communities that are the backbones of our society. We should be able to walk in any prison in the state of Illinois, and we should see an equal representation of every zip code in those prisons. Why are they all coming from one zip code? Why are they all coming from specific neighborhoods? Those are the neighborhoods we got to invest in. We need to think differently about how we're doing things here in Illinois. Think differently. Invest. Kids are not born evil or born, the kids are born innocent. Let's treasure them from the minute they're born. Let's treasure their mothers during the time that they're pregnant. Let's provide safe communities for them to grow up in. And let's not go in and say that we know what to do for those communities. Those communities know what they need. Let's listen. Let's listen, and let's put our money where our values are. Let the budget of the state of Illinois, let it be a moral document that guides what we're doing.
Wonderful. I love that moral document that guides what we're doing. I love that. It's let's have some more human moments. I mean, we've had so many human moments through this podcast, but I want to know what's something about you that people might be surprised to learn. Now, this is not you, the senator, nothing, but just you, who you are, the beautiful person you are. I mean, you're so much already. But yeah.
I don't know. Let's do something fun. When there's a dance floor, it's really tough for me not to get on it. I love dancing. I love music. I love all kinds of music. It's really funny. When I first ran for office, I went down to Springfield for an event, and I was a candidate, right? I wasn't elected yet. And the folks who were with me advising me, like, the music came on and I was like, I started moving. Like, the person who was with me looks at me and is like, stop. And I was like, if running for office means that I can't dance, then I don't think I want this gig. Like, I love dancing. I love music. I feel it in my soul. It's what gives me happiness. So every chance I get, I dance.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I come from a background of dance too. So I'm like, ooh, I'm so happy she said that. Like, that is like, it's just freedom.
Mhm.
It's freedom. It's fun. You don't have a worry in the world.
Music is resistance, and we need to resist right now.
Yes.
Music is resistance. Love is resistance. Community is resistance. People, humanity. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's beautiful. So when work becomes emotionally heavy, so let's talk about that flip side, or politically demanding, what practices or people help keep you grounded?
prayer. And the people are my close team. They keep me grounded every day. And my parents. It's really tough sometimes to call my parents, though, because I don't want them to worry about me. I don't want them to feel like this is too much. There was a moment that I chased ICE out of my community. It was a viral moment, and I did it instinctually. And the kid who recorded the video, I didn't even know. I still don't know him, but I know his name. We've communicated via social media. But the next day, I woke up, after everything had passed, and we had assembled press conferences in my community, and we had over 60 volunteers who showed up to protect the community. It was a beautiful thing. And all the death threats started coming through, and I called my dad, and as soon as I heard his voice, I started crying, and he's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Dad, I'm just so scared." And my dad starts laughing his ass off. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to say that. Starts laughing. And he's like, "Oh, yesterday you're so brave, so brave. And today you're all scared? No, you can't be scared. You keep going. You keep fighting. You're not going to be scared of them. No." And I'm like, okay. So, family's great. Family keeps it real.
They do. They keep you grounded and rooted.
Mhm.
It's like, geez, I'm trying to have a moment here.
Exactly. He's
Like,
like,
no,
"No, we're not having that."
out on those streets facing ICE of all people. And no, I love that.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you have a moment of forgetting that you are strong, in that. Like, it's just so much there to unpack. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, what message do you want young women, especially young Latinas, to hear as they consider their own paths in leadership and public service?
I think that one of the messages is come as you are, and who you are is enough. Who you are is valuable to the movement. Some folks come up to me and say, "But we're not like you, Karina. We're shy, or we're more quiet, we're more timid, or I don't know how to start." It's okay. Come as you are. We need shy people too. We need timid people too. We need people to support our campaigns in the background. We need people who work as our legislative assistants. We need people who work as our media teams. We need people in all different kinds of spaces, not just one personality. You don't need to try to be me. We need you. We don't need another one of me. That's boring. We need more of you. So show up. And there's times that'll be difficult, very difficult. Put down your phones. Put down your phones. Turn off your social media. Go out. Ask your friends to meet up at the Dunkin' Donuts to sit down and hang out and talk about stuff. Don't do it over the phone. Talk to people who don't think like you. Listen, ask questions. Even if you don't like what they have to say, ask more and more and more questions. Network. Get out there, ask people for their phone numbers. If there's someone who you want to learn more about their job, call them. Call them and say, "Can we sit down? Can we have a phone call? Can I take you to coffee to learn more about your job, about how you got to be where you're at?" Networking is so critical. And finally, I'll say, take care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health. It's important. Make that a priority. And if you start seeing these red flags, you're too sad, you're too isolated, you can't shake it, you feel like the world is closing in, or your anxiety is through the roof, put down the phone, do some healthy things, go for a walk, drink more water, call a friend. And if those things aren't working, call your doctor. Mental health matters. Get help if you need it.
That was great. Yeah, that is all important. How can residents support your initiatives, your programs, and your campaign? Where can they go to do that?
Yes. So karinavilla.com is my website. If you've got a few extra dollars that you'd like to donate, we'll gladly take it. Because as you heard, I'm up against a millionaire. And your donations, every dollar counts in this campaign. So karinavilla.com. Also follow me on social media. Follow me at Karina Villa for Controller. And also follow me on my official state page, my state senator, Karina Villa. That's another really good one for you to get resources, for you to understand like the different laws that I've been working on, the different programs that are out there for you all. There's the campaign side of life, but there's also the official state side part of life. So make sure that if you need resources, reach out to my office. If you don't know who your state senator is and you need some help in your area, it's okay. Reach out to my office. We'll let you know. We'll tell you who your senator is. And if you can't get a hold of them, we'll be happy to point you in the right direction of what agency can help you out. We are here for you. I am first and foremost always a social worker before I'm anything else. So we are here to serve you and to be there in your most difficult times. And then if you've got some time to help out on the campaign, we would love to have you. So there's a volunteer link on that website that you can sign up for if you want to learn what it's like to run for office. This is a great opportunity for you. Every single person on the campaign trail is going to be essential and critical to get us to that win on St. Patrick's Day, because Election Day is on St. Patrick's Day in March next year.
Yes, very, very good. And finally, when you think about the future, what legacy do you hope to leave behind for Illinois and the communities that raised you?
As a social worker, it was always my method and my motto was always like, you might never know whose life you made an impact on. I might never know. I might never know. But I hope that at the end of the day, on my deathbed, that my life could have helped at least one person, that my life could have made an impact on one other human being, that person is enough. If I did my life right, I will have made a difference for one human being. That's my hope.
I think you definitely have merged way past one. So, such a wonderful person. State Senator Karina Villa. Thank you for sharing your journey, your heart, and your vision with us today. It's about people, courage, and a deep commitment to community. Your leadership in mental health, public health, education, and justice reform is a powerful example of what it looks like when compassion guides action. And your work shows us that when we stand up for what matters, we don't just change laws, we change lives. Senator, thank you for your service.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
And to our listeners, remember, change begins when you show up in your community, your health, and your civic engagement. You can learn more about initiatives and coming programs at senatorvia.com and through the Illinois General Assembly's resources online. If today's conversation inspired you, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone you know. Big thanks to our sponsor, Support Excellence Media, for helping us spotlight voices that truly matter. I'm your host, Jacqueline L. Malone, and this is the Power in Politics podcast, where leadership meets legacy. Until next time, stay empowered, stay involved, and always remember, real change begins with us, within our communities. See you next time.